My first five today, I just want to focus on the great things that are happening in Washington with respect to foreign policy, President Trump's accomplishments, and then to spend a moment talking about what the media is focusing on. Just a little contrast there for you to think about. Next time you read a bad story about President Trump, ask yourself, wonder where the coverage is of the good things. So first I'll tell you, as you all likely have been following, that the President Trump hosted at the White House just a wonderful ceremony, the signing of historic Middle East deals, and they're historic, of course, because the Middle East has just been a unfortunate trouble spot, great tension, not just over decades or centuries, but really millennia. But President Trump signed, there were several deals signed. One was historic peace deal between Israel and the UAE, United Arab Emirates. This is work done by President Trump, bringing the country of Israel, normally hated by all Islamic majority countries, to the table. Israel, UAE signed one deal, and that was marking the normalization of relations between UAE and then the next one was with Bahrain, UAE, Bahrain and Israel, a peace deal, creating normal relations between them. Both of these are President Trump making strides, making progress in areas where previous presidents have tried and often failed. Also, there was, they've been using the term the Abraham Accords, but in addition to Israel and the UAE and Israel and Bahrain, there was also a trilateral document signed, Israel, Bahrain, and the UAE all signing on, called the Abraham Accords, basically just saying they're going to try to work together. One big concession made by Israel was that, of course, all Muslims have the right to visit Islamic holy sites within the country of Israel. These are huge accomplishments. These are huge things for President Trump to have brought about. Also, there was, and there is also additional talk of other Middle Eastern countries that have had very troubled relations with Israel coming on board soon, possibly Oman, Sudan, and Morocco. Great strides toward the great goal of world peace. In addition, the president has been intimately involved and brought about an economic deal between Serbia and Kosovo. These are all fabulous things for the world. No one could be unhappy except people who want perpetual warfare. There was we talked in the show a couple weeks ago, I think it was, with James Carafano, who was making the point that one thing the Trump administration did differently this time was, in the past, many U.S. presidents have assumed they had to have the deal between Israel and the Palestinians all set in place, all solved, before Israel could then work outside of that and then go and work with other countries coming to a deal. So past presidents and State Department advisors have basically allowed the Palestinian-Israeli conflict to be a bar to Israel moving forward and making peace deals with and normalizing relationships between Israel and other countries. This was one thing that the Trump administration said, we just don't have to wait for the Palestinians to come around. In fact, the Palestinians are now weakened by the fact that other majority Muslim countries are coming on board, making deals, normalizing relationships with Israel. This makes it harder and harder for the Palestinians to keep up their endless conflict with Israel. But the decision to say we're moving forward, even though the Israelis and Palestinians have no deal, was a great step. And these are things, when you step back and think, what should the President of the United States be working on? It really shouldn't be endless fusses with people in Congress who make up false accusations against him and try to take him down for 3.5 years of his first term of presidency. He, the president, has managed, despite the endless attacks by the Democrat majority in the Congress, by the media, to attack his presidency, to delegitimize him. These are enormous accomplishments by President Trump, leading to, of course, you likely all read, that he was nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. Obviously, many people are nominated, doesn't mean he gets it, but the idea he was nominated, I want to just mention what they were. The first one was on Wednesday. The president was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize by a member of the Norwegian parliament for helping to broker the peace deal between Israel and the UAE. Again, these are internationally prominent people who are looking at what the president has done and said, wow, this is a great thing. Look what this president has done. Actually nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize. for having done something very, very significant in American history. And then there was a second nomination. Magnus Jacobson, who is a member of the Swedish parliament, announced he was nominating the Trump administration and the two European nations for their joint work. This was Serbia and Kosovo, joint work for peace and economic development through the cooperation agreement signed in the White House. So two different entities, not the American media mob always attacking President Trump, but actually prominent people connected to the Nobel Peace Prize nominating President Trump for that award. Whether he gets it or not, we'll just have to find out in 2021. We don't know whether he'll be given that award. But I really want to close out the first five today by saying this. We spent so much time in this first Trump administration listening to endless false attacks by the American left, by the media who's complicit in fomenting just endless dissension and disdain for the president in this country. Constant attacks on him, ranging from the cooked up Russia collusion hoax to the impeachment effort to remove him for nothing, or for removing him for what Biden actually did and Trump didn't do but got falsely accused of doing. Just the constant effort to bring this president down. And you see a president emerging strong from this era, nearing the close of his first term of presidency, enormous accomplishments. And I'll close out the first five by saying this. This is exactly the kind of things, these are the kinds of things that a leader does in this world, brings formerly incompatible warring nations, warring countries to the table and works out a deal. Just huge kudos to President Trump for both things he has done in this context and for the Nobel Peace Prize nominations. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five.